have anything to add on?
I do have one add-on. We have a resolution to authorize the president of the board to sign a key release and terms of use agreement with the State of Ohio Department of Administrative Services on behalf of Telecom relative to Mark's Mobile Voice Delivery System Advanced System Key. This is a Mark's agreement that Telecom was just given yesterday, and it's a 911. They have to have it approved right away.
So moved.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, is that it? Everybody? All right, then we're gonna have our first agenda item, which is the, from the Historic Society, is that right? Yes. Thank you.
And of course, I'm going to switch glasses. I want to thank you for your time this morning. My name is Michael Coyan. I'm the Executive Director of the Warren County Historical Society and have been so for just over 2 years now. I am a retired professor of interdisciplinary studies, so I never thought I would be doing this in my retirement, but it's something that I take great joy and pleasure in. While my father's family hails from Jackson County, Ohio, my mother's family has been in this county since 1796. 2 of my ancestors sat where you are seated. 3 were mayors of Springboro, Waynesville, and Lebanon. 3 were township trustees. And as my great-grandfather used to say, there's nothing more noble than service to Old Warren, as he used to call it. So, to put it mildly, I couldn't get away with anything as a teenager in any corner of Warren County. From the sheriff's department to every judge sitting, they knew a family member or were related. I also had the privilege as a youth of working with Hazel Spencer Phillips, who, 82 years ago, was the person behind the founding of the Warren County Historical Society. Hazel was in her declining years, but I learned so much from her and from all those associated with her. And our new board now is reaffirming and renewing the commitment of her vision of an organization that is not just seated in Lebanon, much like you're seated in Lebanon. We're here because it's the county seat. But Hazel said, never lose sight of the fact that we are to serve all of Warren County. And we have been for 82 years, this May the 6th. So it's not simply that museum in Lebanon. And as a matter of fact, we are now loaning and gifting items to our sister museums, whether they're in Springboro or Waynesville or Mason, encouraging Morrow to get their museum up and running, and of course in Franklin and Carlisle. It's not something that our board wishes to do simply to keep hoarding things under the roof in our complex of buildings downtown. In my tenure, I've run across some incredible things, and some things that we're very proud of, and things that people often don't know. For instance, we hold the largest art collection between the Cincinnati Art Museum and the Dayton Art Institute, with the exception of Miami's Campus Museum in Oxford. We have the largest Shaker collection in the United States, and it's been looked at by the Smithsonian, and they said to us it is absolutely priceless. We have the largest textile collection, the second largest textile collection in the Midwest. Only Kent State has textiles older than ours. Quilts, coverlets, samplers back to the 1760s. And there's nothing more thrilling than to open a box and there's the shawl of Mary Todd Lincoln. So many people think of the Warren County Historical Society and they think of 3 things: quilts, Shakers, and Tom Corwin. We're very proud of those things, but we also have, according to the Smithsonian, of whom we are an associate member, the finest collection of Adena and Hopewell and Fort Ancient artifacts outside of their collection in Washington. And Jack Blosser, who used to run Fort Ancient, backs that up. they haven't, in many cases, been promoted properly. So one of the things we've been doing through the COVID closure is completely redoing the museum. When I was asked to take over, I asked the board's permission to open the doors and blow the dust out of the place. Let's put in new lighting, new paint, new carpeting, and more importantly, let's reach out all across the county to new members and younger members, which we've been doing. Our museum here loans things to the Cincinnati Art Museum on a regular basis. But I bet you didn't know that we also lend to the Chicago Art Institute and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's not just that little museum next to the library on Broadway. We're well thought of in major museum circles around the United States. We're redoing programming. We've added music at the museum, lectures for adults, programs for young people, including history camp, fossil hunts, frontier stories in the Beetle Cabin, poetry contests, photography contests. We're creating an arboretum on the grounds of Glendower, the only one in Warren County. And our art exhibits are incredible. Currently on display is the work of Rodney Veal. He's the Emmy Award-winning host of The Art Show on channels 14 and 16, picked up by PBS in 8 different states. Next exhibit is Cedric Michael Cox. And beyond that, Darren Goodman, who was the artist in residence for the Hawaii Contemporary Art Center, this fall is going to hang the entire museum in blown glass and bring a kiln in so that kids on Saturday morning can watch the blowing of glass. Our openings on Fridays have garnered as many as 400 people for our opening night receptions, and they come from Dayton and Cincinnati as well as all over Warren County. Our membership last year was just shy of 13,000 people. I can tell you that I think we're going to beat that because, as I was just telling Rebecca, in the last 2 weeks, we have had 457 visitors to the Historical Society campus, which is absolutely phenomenal. The visitors come from 26 states, they come from 5 foreign countries, and our membership includes people from every corner of Warren, Hamilton, Butler, Montgomery, and 10 surrounding counties. We're very proud of that. Hope Taft, former First Lady of Ohio, has become a very, very good friend of ours. Hope walked through the building and came out, especially after seeing the archaeological and indigenous peoples exhibit, and that's only a third of the collection. And she just said, it's magnificent. We had a drop-by visit from Greg Woods, who's the Ohio Director of Development. Greg was to just spend half an hour. 3 hours later, he walked out, and he emailed me the next day, and he said, I can't believe it. It's a hidden jewel in Ohio. Now, we do have our problems. We have an aging physical plant, obviously. Our youngest building, if you're not counting the addition, which you have generously helped with, our youngest building is 86 years old, and our oldest building is 228. So there are always those problems with updating security, fire suppression, and most importantly, the climate control systems in our vaults, because it is in those places where we have some of the most precious items. Our staff of 4 works diligently, but we have a corps of volunteers second to none. They average 390 hours a month. That's 17 and a half hours a day that we're open. I wanted to share with you something that we found not long ago, but I think is quite incredible. Again, it sort of refutes the fact that we are simply a museum full of quilts. This is a pewter cup. It's a communion cup. It's rather rough for the wear, but who owned it is very important to us and shows you the breadth and depth of the collection. This was owned by a fellow by the name of John Hart. It was brought to Warren County by his grandson, John Hart. If you want to know where Hart Road came from and Hart School, that no longer exists, John Hart was from New Jersey. This was his personal communion cup, and he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, for which he lost everything after he bore his signature on that document. So we find these things tucked away. This was the 26th gift given to the museum in 1947. And believe it or not, we're still finding things in our inventory, reclassifying things, going through drawers, and it's an incredible thing. I hope that you received in the mail our Founders Day invitation for May the 6th. We're going to put on the show a little bit and show you the renovations and the updates. Rebecca Stroll, who's to my right, is the executive director of Main Street Lebanon. We hosted the Chocolate Walk on Saturday evening, and we were very happy that so many new people were coming through the museum. And curiously enough, I was standing at the exit, and person after person would say to me, "I've walked by this building forever and didn't know what was in it. This is absolutely beautiful. Why am I going to Dayton or Cincinnati when I can come here?" I think we're in a good position. We're in a very good position because as a member of several boards in Cincinnati over the years, and as a ticket holder, I know on a Thursday or Friday night, I don't want to drive all the way to Music Hall. But if I can come to the museum in Lebanon, and I can listen to a lady who opened for Sting play ragtime and Tin Pan Alley music, that's pretty good. And I can be home in bed by 9 o'clock. That's a pretty good deal. So I think we're on the edge of something. There's also frustration. ArtsWave, who came to visit, their vice president was with us, he said, "My heavens, you're a cultural center right here in the middle of the county. You're as important to this county as the Fitton Center is to Butler County, and the Carnegie Arts to northern Cincinnati." I said, "Yes, the only problem is you harvest money for the ArtsWave Drive and take it to Cincinnati, and rarely does any of it come back here. And Arts Dayton is in the same thing. Arts Dayton harvests money from Springboro and the Waynesville corridor, and rarely, if ever, does it come back here. We are a no man's land between these two great sources. Nevertheless, we're persevering with your support, the support of generous patrons. We've been able to completely redo the museum. And of course, we're looking at new working relationships with other area museums and nonprofits. So as we approach our 82nd year, and of course, I recommend to you never, never, never move a log cabin. I had no gray hair before this happened. But nevertheless, it's become one of the most popular and most photographed sites, and I believe if you think the Golden Lamb is the most photographed building in Warren County, I think this is going to come to a quick second. We are now beginning the process of landscaping around that cabin, and we're putting a Shaker and Native American healing garden around that structure. It's really been a labor of education and perseverance, and I certainly hope that if you haven't visited the Beetle Cabin, that you will. We did find out most recently that not only is it the oldest log cabin in Warren County, it is also the first site west of the Allegheny Mountains, and this is found in a diary entry that was found in the Winterthur Museum in Delaware. It is the first place west of the Allegheny Mountains where the Shakers held a religious ceremony in April of 1805. So we have within our possession in Warren County the most significant Shaker structure west of the Allegheny Mountains, right there. So we're very pleased with that. As we are approaching these new ventures, one of the people that approached us was Greg Davis with an idea that he would like to present to you. And as I say, we have a lot of people coming to us now We have organizations that have been asked to come see us by ODNR or the Corps of Engineers, or someone who has an idea of starting a fire museum in the county, or someone who wants to restore an old house, or developers who have old houses on their new development, but they want to retain the house and they want to know something about them. Nevertheless, Greg presents a very interesting idea that I think dovetails well with our mission. I thank you for your time today. I want to introduce Doug to you, or I'm sorry, Greg. And I think that this is a possibility that maybe needs to be fulfilled. And it has to do with the first fallen person at the Battle of Bunker Hill, General Joseph Warren, our county's namesake. Thank you, and I do hope to see you on May the 6th. Do you have any questions?
Where were you a professor?
Well, it depends on what subject. My background is in interdisciplinary studies. So I taught creativity and culture at Miami. I taught art and architecture at Sinclair and goaded Sinclair to build a campus in Warren County because I was tired of driving to Dayton. I taught theater history and the literature of the theater at Wright State. I taught music theory and history at UD, and I taught at Ohio University. So I was fine unless I got the briefcases mixed up. And then the students just thought the old man was losing it, so you know.
If I would have had you as a professor, I might have actually attended class. You're so engaging. I love it. Your style.
Well, thank you. It's a thing of where when I look at these items in the collection and I handle these things, and I think that's something that my staff does as well, there's such a palpable respect. And these things live for us as we wander through, whether it's a pile of clothing or someone drops off somebody sent us a tombstone in a box. What am I going to do with that? I don't know. And quite frankly, some things come in that are pretty awful. It's that lamp that even Goodwill didn't want, and we might wind up with it. But then there are those incredible treasures. Just the other day, we uncovered a desk that's been sitting in the back part of a room. It's Governor Corwin's desk from Columbus when he was governor in 1841 and 42. We didn't even know we had it. So to me, every day I go to work now in retirement, it's exciting. It's very exciting. And we want to share that. I remember just Saturday night, a father and his young son came in the door. They were looking for their mother, and he mentioned something about, well, what's in this old place? And I said, well, if you go downstairs, you can see mastodon tusks, and you can see mammoth teeth, and where? I never saw them again. They spent all their time in the archaeology room. But that's what's engaging. Warren County is unique. It's perhaps, I've traveled all over the world, but I came home here because we have an incredible legacy. And as my great-grandfather used to say, let's do it right for old Warren. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really quickly, I'm not as tall as he is, so I'm going to stand on my
You can
tippy
pull that
toes.
down if you like.
So I do work for Main Street Lebanon, and our mission is to improve, promote, and preserve the history of historic downtown Lebanon. And I just wanted to mention how cooperatively the Warren County Historical Society works with other organizations within Warren County, whether it's lending their space for something like a chocolate walk, which was actually a very, very, very popular event that Main Street Lebanon has hosted for the last 5 years. And he's not kidding. We had people come in. This event sold out in maybe 3 days, and we didn't even promote it. And we had someone come in and say, well, heck with the chocolate walk. I just want to stay here. So that was very exciting for him and very depressing for me. But So they do bring in the Warren County Historical Society. It is a huge tourist attraction for the Lebanon and Warren County community. So they bring in tours on a daily basis that may have 50 to 60 people, and then those people come out of the Warren County Museum or out of the Glendower Mansion, and they go into downtown or go into Mason to eat, to shop. So it's a huge boost to the economy for us to have that feature within the Warren County area. And then the other thing is the Warren County Historical Society is the first to lend their space to a nonprofit. So be that the Lebanon High School baseball team, or many of our Chamber of Commerce use the museum to host their meetings, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis. The Historical Society is the first to lend their space to one of us nonprofits. So it's a huge benefit to not only the community as a tourist attraction, but also by supporting a lot of the nonprofits that serve our county. So thank you.
It's a little anxiety-provoking following the professor because I've not done things like this before. My name is Greg Davis, and my mom's from Van Wert County, and my dad's from West Virginia, so I'm a first-generation Warren Countyan. My wife Lynn and I moved here in 1983 after I graduated from dental school at the University of Michigan. And I am here, on the other hand, like Michael, on behalf of Old Warren, and in this case, not so much the county, but as the county's namesake, Dr. Joseph Warren. I emailed to Tina the materials that kind of described what I was about, so I don't know if I need to put up those materials. Okay. So I'm active with a group called the Friends of the 20 Mile House, and I became active with the group after the 20 Mile House was rubble, so I was not there for that part of the story. But I've been active with them as the different historical markers have gone up throughout Deerfield and Hamilton townships, Jeremiah Morrow's barn and the Butterworth Farmhouse and the Peters Cartridge Factory and the King Mansion and so on. And it's after the King Mansion marker went up, the group was talking about things that might be an appropriate focus for us to come up next. And I had just recently been on I'm an antique car collector, and the Hudson Essex Terraplane Club had their regional meet in Findlay. And I noticed while we were visiting the courthouse in Findlay that there atop the clock tower is a statue of John Hancock. You quickly knew for whom the county was named. And it was in the aftermath of that it occurred to me, I'm kind of a student of history, and I knew who Warren County was named for, but it occurred to me that I've lived here since 1983, and I can't think of a single place in the county where the citizens of the county or a visitor to the county is introduced to who Dr. Joseph Warren was. And so I suggested to the group that perhaps an appropriate focus might be that we take on the role of stewards of that legacy of Dr. Warren. And while he's not a distinguished resident or visitor of Warren County, he is the person who in 1803, when Warren County was named, that's the name that was lifted for us to wear. And I think it's inappropriate for us to let that name gather dust and not be recognized. Our group kind of lifted the concept of the notion to Michael with the Historical Society, and to Linda Eckert with the Warren County Genealogical Society. And Linda actually has put together letters for each of you that kind of voice the affirmation to voice the Genealogical Society's embrace of this cause as an appropriate thing for us to focus on. So within the materials that I provided for you, I kind of introduced you to who Dr. Warren was, why I feel like it's appropriate, or why we collectively feel it's appropriate that we do something about it. I think a very interesting an appropriate timeline that we shoot for the 250th anniversary of Dr. Warren's death at the Battle of Bunker Hill on June 17th, or June 17th of 75, and then, you know, talk about some of the ways in which we can go about doing it. We have, as an individual group, already collected in excess of $14,000 to go toward the memorials that we've proposed, and I think the main reasons that I felt it was appropriate to maybe come and talk with you folks about it today was to find if you've got additional ideas as to how we could reach out to the other townships within Warren County to garner some support, both time support and financial support for the effort, and what your creative thoughts might be, ways in which the commission and Warren County itself can support us with the effort.
So the bottom line, what are you trying to accomplish? His name, ID, his story, what are you trying to accomplish in a nutshell?
We proposed 2 specific memorials to be placed within Warren County to try and find highly visible, frequently seen sites at which a memorial of some sort to Dr. Warren would be seen, and that people are introduced to him, whether it's for 30 seconds or whether it's, you know, a seed that ingrains within them that makes them go on and study further who Dr. Warren was. But in particular, we thought it would be appropriate to have an outdoor exhibit of some sort, perhaps a statue of some sort. We proposed, Michael has talked with a couple of prospective artists that could be potentially commissioned to do the work, and they talked about doing either a bust, a bronze bust that would be on a granite marker, or a full-length body sculpture within the presentation I gave you. There are a couple of there are pictures in there of statues of Warren that exist in other settings. One of them is at his grave site, and one of them is at the Bunker Hill Museum in Boston. And then the second we thought would be appropriate to have perhaps an indoor memorial of some sort. And coming out of our group, the thought was to have it somewhere maybe here within this building. And as opposed to a statue, maybe a copy of a portrait of Warren, maybe the portrait that's here on the cover of the book, which is John Singleton Copley's portrait that Warren sat for in Faneuil Hall in Boston, or there's a more dramatic portrait done by Trumbull that depicts in a rather
kind of bleak.
Yeah, kind of a exaggerated, non-historic fashion, but of Warren's death at Bunker Hill. My personal thought is that we should be celebrating the life of Dr. Warren as opposed to the death of Dr. Warren, and that, but that's for another time to make those decisions. But in answer to your question, Mr. Young, is what we've proposed is that there be 2 memorials, one an indoor type of thing, perhaps here in this building. They have the plaques of the distinguished citizens, you know, and again, he's not a citizen of Warren County, so I don't know that it would go in with those guys. But somewhere here within the building where people kind of stumble onto it as they come in the building. And the other, again, Michael has talked with us about the possibility of doing a statue there on the lawn outside of the library and the Historical Museum, the Harmon Museum, along Broadway, where, again, people from the sidewalk or from the road would see something's there, take note of it, and perhaps pause for a moment to see what it's about.
So, as I understand from the materials that you sent, that piece is somewhere between $8,000 and $18,000, of which you have about $14,000 raised.
Correct.
And so you're looking to close that gap, and then some consideration around both respect to location and the type of, whether it's a portrait or this Battle of Bunker Hill depiction of Dr. Warren someplace here in our, so that's kind of.
There are, I mean, like this is one that I have on the wall at our house that is actually just an engraving done in the 1800s, done from the Copley portrait, but an engraving done in, that I bought off of, off of eBay. It is an original 18 whatever engraving, but I mean, even something, I don't know that this would grab people's eyes necessarily as they come through and make them go look at it. But there are a number of Warren images out there that could be selected from for that purpose.
So 15 or 20 grand will get you what? The full sculpture, or what, or just, that's the
Yeah,
baseline?
the estimates that Michael got were for the artwork, it's for the sculpture itself. So if there is a granite base or other things, if there's a marker that goes with it that identifies who the statue is, depicting, those would be expenses in addition to the figures that I had in the document that I provided that you're referencing.
So there's really two things relative to us, would be a location of this exhibit or whatever you want to call it, some memorial of some sort, in our rotunda. And then, so would we be supportive of you putting something there is question number one.
Right.
Question number two is, how are you paying for it? And essentially, you've got 14,000 of potentially at max a $20,000 cost?
That's
Raise?
for the statue that they're looking to do out near the Historical Society and the library. I guess the library has already identified a location for this, is that correct?
Correct.
And so $18,000 is the high estimate for the full statue, and then any extra would be a plaque or whatever the exhibit itself would be around it.
Right.
And then it's the portrait piece that you're suggesting for our facility, correct?
Exactly.
And that you don't have an amount dedicated to that.
No, I don't. Both of the prints that I mentioned and that I included copies of within the material that I provided for you are owned by the museum in Boston, the Art Museum in Boston, and copies are available. So I would think it could be as simple as obtaining a copy, framing it nicely, and maybe on the backside have information about or below it or whatever, depending on where it goes.
And your thought is that this would be in conjunction with the 2025 recognition of the 250 years since his passing?
It could be, to me, it just seemed, and again, that came out of the 20 Mile House group. One of the members there had this awareness that that's coming up, and it's far enough off that it gives us time to be able to prepare these things, but certainly an appropriate time to be introducing the county to Dr. Warren.
So when do you want a decision from us?
Well, I would suggest that you take whatever time you need. The other question, you'd mentioned two questions. The third question I would ask is, do you have any, I live in Hamilton Township, and our group is kind of, the 20 Mile House group is kind of focused in Deerfield and Hamilton. Are there ways that, what would be good ideas for me to reach out to the other townships that make up, this is kind of a county-wide thing, or at least I think it would be appropriate for it to be county-wide. And are there ways that you guys can suggest that would be potential means to reach out to those townships and introduce what we're planning to do?
I would, if I were you, I would consider reaching out to the Township Association and the Municipal League, because I think both of those organizations that represent all of the townships and all the cities and villages would be interested in what you're talking about. That certainly would be a starting point, and we can help make the connection to you, to those who are kind of in charge of organizing those meetings. They meet on a regular basis and they put programming together, and I think it would be, perfectly appropriate to request that you come and give your presentation to them. I think they'd be interested in it.
So Township Association and Municipal League. All right. All right.
Tiffany, I get fired up about this stuff. Wasn't this like a decade ago we did how long was that we helped them a lot with the?
Wasn't that long
Weren't we
ago?
at the end of our 3-year commitment for the additional funds last year?
Yes.
So.
I thought we
To
did
the-
something, I thought we did something big a long time ago, too.
We've done several things over the last, probably since you've been a county commissioner, 15,
Yeah, you guys
Since
come in,
2005.
we get excited sometimes, because it's not on, the front burner, but I do think it's important. And I mean, if you're asking an opinion right now, I think it's a layup to say, we'll give you some space out in the rotunda. I mean, no problem. Then it just becomes, what are you gonna do with it? And then I think you've got a couple of different options, one being, just a print of a portrait, which I think those are probably a few $100 or something. I mean, it's inconsequential on the actual cost of that. Yeah, I mean, so less than $1,000 to get, a really nice something that you hang there. Then, part two would be, you're gonna put a full statue, sounds like, on your location down there in the court, which sounds great, but then what would the cost be of having a portrait and maybe even that bust here in the rotunda, which would kind of be cool to have, not a full statue, but kind of the bust, shoulders up or something with that, people walk by, what is that? I think that would be appropriate. And then part three, as Commissioner Jones said, I think we would certainly be supportive in your efforts of reaching out to the political subdivisions in the county, writing a letter on, under our signature that we support this, and then potentially even giving each one of these political subdivisions a print to just put in your lobby. And then, so if there, however many political subdivisions there are, what's the cost of a smaller one of those, $200 or $300 total, something like that? Just, can you hang this? And, we'll just give it to them, potentially.
I mean, those are all exciting concepts for me. That's great.
Yeah, and this is, in some ways, it's kind of a small amount, and I don't even know that we really need to use public dollars on this, but we'll certainly help you. If you're a few $1,000 short or whatever, we'll make sure you get there.
Okay.
Well, I certainly think it's appropriate that if we're going to have something in our building, we would want to own it and would want to have, so I wouldn't have any problem with that piece of it, supporting that, as we do with all the other things in our facility. I think that it's not a huge investment of resources potentially, and I think it would be part of the public space, so something for us to continue to talk about, but
Yeah,
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
There is a possibility, there is a possibility that if a full-size sculpture is created, there is the possibility that if a full-size sculpture is created, the artist will do what they call a maquette, which is a third the scale, which is as meticulous as the larger version. And that would fit perfectly in the lobby. I know of no sculptor who does not do, the original to get everybody's approval, this is how it's going to look. So that's a possibility as well. And the maquette shouldn't cost, that's rolled into the cost of the larger sculpture.
What, are you like an art history professor? You know what you're talking about? Seriously?
I used to.
Well, this is exciting. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And this is the most recent biography of Dr. Bourne. If anyone wants to borrow my copy, you're welcome to, but you can also find it easily on Amazon or whatever, so. Thanks for your time, and thank you to both Linda and to Michael, and I appreciate having some moral support.
Yeah, and just communicate through Tiffany. Yeah, I think the board's supportive of what you're trying to do, and we'll facilitate as much as we can, making sure it happens.
Great. And again, the Township Commission and the
Township Association and the Municipal League, but Tina can make those connections.
Yeah, she'll connect you.
All right, thanks so much.
Well, now, don't all go away yet. Are you with them as well?
Yes, I'm with them.
The genealogical.
Okay. Okay,
It's in our
great.
basement.
Okay, great.
We have a-
So, we have a proclamation we were gonna do today, and then maybe get a picture with you all, because we were proclaiming May 6, 2022 as Warren County Historical Society Founders Day. And I assume that you're all aware that we were gonna do that. Okay. Good. So, if you like, we can get a picture with you all up front here. Do we have somebody to take a picture then?
I'll stand in the back.
You don't want to read the whole thing?
I will do it. I was, but I saw everybody getting up, and so I said, okay, you know, I was gonna read it.
That's all right. Who wrote the narrative that was sent in about Dr. Warren? That was very well written. I enjoyed reading it.
Can we have everyone stand under the seal? Someone's alarm. It's time to
Yeah,
go.
it's mine. I don't know how that happened. I don't even know what it's about.
To give you enough room?
Why don't you hold that? All right.
Don't you want to be in the picture?
No, I'm only for photo.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm gonna, before we go, since we're,
Oh, can
I was gonna read this too, or at least part of it.
Okay,
I'm gonna video this if that's okay.
that's great.
Hold on. We're here. See? I need my glasses as well. Where did I put them?
Right here, I see some, reading glasses, there you go.
Right there.
I can't get used to the microphone.
You can't?
No.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
So I leave glasses, I've got pairs of glasses all over the museum.
All right, so, thank you. So as you know, we already mentioned that we're proclaiming May 6th. This is the Warren County Commissioners are proclaiming May 6th of 2022 as the Warren County Historical Society Founders Day. And whereas the Warren County Historical Society works to preserve and present the heritage of Warren County as well as Southwest Ohio. As the stewards of the collection of Warren County historical artifacts, the organization works diligently to ensure its safety for future generations. The Warren County Historical Society is a nonprofit organization, owns and operates the Harmon Museum, Glendower Mansion, the Armstrong Conference Center, and the Beetle Log Cabin. And whereas the Warren County Historical Society was founded in the spring of 1940, when several Warren County citizens decided to take up the task of chartering an organization to preserve the county's history, and for the past 82 years, the Warren County Historical Society's valued staff members, executive board of directors, trustees, and thousands of dedicated volunteers have rallied in support of preserving and presenting the history of Warren County. And whereas the Warren County Historical Society provides an invaluable service to community members through their research library, volunteer librarians and archivists have recorded historical and genealogical information for the research library for over 8 decades. Included in these archives are materials on Shakers and Union Village, National, Normal University, local churches, court records, photos, atlases, cemetery records, local newspapers, and birth, marriage, and death records. And whereas as a nonprofit organization, the Warren County Historical Society relies on the help of their membership, donations from generous benefactors, and many committed volunteers to continue to serve Warren County for many years to come. And now, therefore, be it resolved to celebrate 82 years in service of the citizens of Warren County, the Board of Commissioners of Warren County hereby proclaims Friday, May 6, 2022, as Warren County Historical Society Founders Day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, congratulations, and we're very glad that you're with us and doing this wonderful work, because, you know, history is one of the most important things for us to remember and to always teach every generation about. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, one of the most important things that I've always heard was, treasure the moment, for as it passes, you are now in history.
Exactly right. So when would you teach at Miami University? I'm a graduate of Miami.
I taught at Miami in the mid-'80s, and then after my doctorate at OU, I circled back into the early '90s. So I taught in the School of Fine Arts and in the School of Interdisciplinary Studies.
Very good.
So I've known every president, including Uncle Phil. Phil
Okay.
Schreiber, I go back that far. I've known every president of Miami. And so it's been a delight. And yeah, I've enjoyed all of it.
Good. Well, good to meet you,
Well, thank you.
and good to meet you too. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so
Come visit.
much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Will do.
You bet. Take
Appreciate
care.
it.
You bet.
Thank
Take care.
you.
I can tell.
Oh, gosh, anytime.
Well, he's a
Thanks
good
for being
spokesman.
here.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for hearing us today.
Central casting.
Take care.
I have to go get my dog. He's our official greeter at the museum. He doesn't understand why he got left at home.
I've got it. What is your dog's name?
Finnegan.
Of course it is.
If you just follow the Warren County Historical Society on Facebook, so, and the newsletter, he has his own section.
Awesome.
Newsletter.
Thank you.
It's not gonna be Spot.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have,
My dog's.
Thank you.
might
is
be
there anything
Trevor.
else today?
No, I do not have
What is
anything
our,
else today.
you know, next week is an election day, and I actually have something going on that day. So, you know, I'm not sure, do we have a large agenda next week?
Let me grab my tablet.
I did look, I always try to look ahead. I do think you have something scheduled, Tina, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. I did look at it. Dates all blend together. I'm surprised when we were doing research for this building that we didn't come across any of the Warren stuff when we went to the Historical Society. All the pictures, I mean,
Well, even our time capsule wasn't
yeah,
anything great.
I mean, we,
Yeah.
that was the first time
we
I
should
ever really
definitely-
read that story.
It seems to me like completely appropriate that we put something in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure,
About
I mean,
it.
we've
you
done
know what-
every other, you know,
You know,
kind of
one might
prominent-
assume that Warren, the name Warren came from somebody connected to Warren County.
Right.
Yeah.
But in many, many counties, no, so that's not the case at all. And it was very common to name counties after founding fathers, signers of the Declaration of Independence, people that were important in the American Revolution. So that, and that's all over the place the case, with people who had no connection whatsoever. And then there, of course, there are people, you know, like, of course, where the city I'm from, Mason, is connected to the territory, but it is not unusual to have someone that's not.
You have a 9 a.m. work session with the attorney and the owners of St. Zachary's Haven for one final request for sewer service for their,
They have felt like they did not receive a yes or no answer during the last work session when Mrs. Pike was here. I do not know if did they listen to the tapes?
they did not request to
They
hear
did not
the tapes.
request the tapes.
I thought we
They
did,
did do the
sort of.
minutes.
This is, well, yeah, the guy that runs it called me this morning. I guess I went to high school with him back then, and he reached out. And this is the one where basically, even though the neighbor across the street has sewers, they are outside the sewer improvement area. And if we make the exception for one, and he discussed, he's
And the
like, I get it,
township
I
said-
understand that, you know, unintended consequences, all that stuff. But he was very much, he asked about two things. Number one, leach field, is that gonna be, you know, is the health department, can we get the health department to do anything other than a leach field for them? You know, it takes up so much of their space. And I was gonna call Chris and ask him about that. And number two, he asked me about annexing into Morrow, because Morrow would give it to him, and I'm like, I'm not discussing anything about annexation with you and telling you what to do or not do there. But even if they annexed into Morrow, that doesn't change our improvement district.
I would have to check with Bruce, but I do believe it would change the boundary because the current boundary is the boundary of the village of Morrow.
Hamilton Township.
Would put them into the other sewer
Would put them
improvement
into
area.
the other
Other
sewer,
sewer
to
district.
Morrow Rochester sewer area. So Morrow Rochester sewer area is defined by the boundaries of Morrow.
So that is a because again, that's no, as long as we hold the Maginot line in place and we're not amending it, if they annex somewhere else, that doesn't really affect our boundaries anywhere. Can you check with that? and
Yes.
see if we can-
Bruce has researched,
Well,
so
they,
I can do that.
they, and they're contiguous tomorrow?
Yes, I
Well, then-
believe so.
well, if they want-
There is a property in between that is currently in Hamilton Township, so that would be, they'd have to overcome that to be contiguous.
Because they have to
That's
have
correct.
contiguity
That's
in
correct.
order to annex. But if there is a property owner and they have contiguity, and they want to annex into Morrow, and Morrow is perfectly happy with that, they don't need our permission for that.
Correct, I just want to make sure that doesn't, because it's
Would that
the
change
sewer
the bound-
boundary
yes,
stuff. I don't
yes.
think it does, because,
Well, it doesn't, it isn't a decision by us any longer. I think that's what your point is. And I thought we were pretty,
Yeah.
I mean, I thought we were pretty clear when we
Yeah,
were talking
I think
about
they're
it.
just throwing up another Hail Mary. if
They
think-
are, the Pikes are currently represented by
Amy Blankenship.
Amy Blankenship with
Frost
Frost Brown Todd, and that's who has been talking to Bruce as well as requesting all the documents. But I can ask Bruce that question.
That's the only thing that's on the agenda for next
That's
meeting.
ma'am.
correct.
No, I was gonna say, so I probably
As
will
of
not
right
be here, but I would either, I mean, I don't have any problem with you guys proceeding with this, but we might suggest doing it on a Thursday, later afternoon. Cause I'm sure they would, unless you guys object to that, then I could be present for it, or you could take it without my presence next week.
Next Thursday, I'm
Yeah.
in Cleveland.
Yeah, no, I think we just go ahead with the regular scheduled
Okay.
meeting. We're not changing anything, we're not doing anything, we're just delivering what we've already told them.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with that. And I mean, I thought we were very clear at the last meeting.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, yeah, and I do recall the township was here and we asked them the express question. Because they were obviously in favor of this particular parcel.
They wanted to accommodate
They
them.
wanted to accommodate them, but when they were asked a specific question,
They said no.
they
did
said
not.
no. It was
We asked
pretty
them that
clear.
specific question.
Yes.
Yes, specifically based upon the fact that Bruce has indicated it would open additional territory that might be served. They were against, the township was
I
against
mean, obviously,
that.
we were very supportive of their mission.
Yes.
We
Yes.
wanted to help
Yes.
them. We wanted to facilitate them, but at the same time, we expressed the concern about going outside of our territory. We all know in this area that there is a question about, the impact of allowing sewers to go into an area that's not in our service territory, and what does that mean? And it's been sensitive, and we've been very sensitive to Hamilton Township's desire with regard to how this is to be done and accommodated, which is why we asked them that question.
Right.
And when they realized that this would have an impact, they reversed course. That was my understanding.
Yes,
Correct.
that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Well, I think to Dave's point, it's happy to hear them, and maybe there is something that we learn between now and then that's useful to them, but I don't think will change because the fact set hasn't changed.
And of course, if they're able to, they have to overcome the contiguity. They can't jump into Morrow without having, there are some ways legally to do some interesting contiguity issue, but I don't know that they fit that. Okay. Does anyone else have anything else? Well, next week, if people know this, there is an election going on, and there's been lots of confusion about that because of the Ohio Supreme Court's various rulings dealing with particularly issues of the jurisdictional lines for our state House and our state Senate seats, as well as our U.S. congressional seats. But there is, for the public to know this, I'm sure they are aware, that On May 3rd, there will be an election. This will be, if there are issues on the ballot, they could be on the ballot then, but there's also primarily primaries for various different, both state and county offices, as well as for the individual parties, both the Democrat and Republican in particular, Central Committee seats. So there is an election. The people can still vote. This week, I think it's up to 7 o'clock in the evening at our Board of Elections here on our campus here in Lebanon. And they can also request an absentee ballot still and receive that as long as they then return that and have it postmarked as of Election Day. So I encourage people to go out and vote, and we will know more after that election. And then I believe that the legislature will be setting probably sometime later this summer. Typically, there is a common date at the first week of August to hold a special election. So it would be my guess that the elections for our state house and state senate seats would occur at that time, probably at the first week of August or perhaps the second week of August. But other than that, everything is going to take place on May 3rd, next Tuesday. Anybody else have any comments about it?
No?
Okay.
Get out and vote.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have anything to comment
Do
today?
you need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.